Welcome to Planetary Health First, Mars Next. It is a great evening. It is a special evening. We have Eve Herold, and she's an award-winning author and consultant. Currently, she's serving at as Director of Policy Research and Education at HealthSpan Action and Coalition. And we are going to be deep diving tonight on her book that she wrote, Robots and the People Who Love Them, Holding On to Our Humanity in an Age of Social Robots. So this is a super important topic. And Eve, we're so excited that you're here tonight to talk with us. Can you, if there's anything you want to share additional that about yourself that's relevant, please do.
No, I just think that from our prior conversations, we may be focusing more on health and robots in the use of healthcare. So I have a long history of writing about cutting edge medicine, and in fact, that's kind of how I got into writing about social robots, because it came about when I was researching my last book, which was about converging technologies in medicine that were coming together and creating all these really cutting edge implants for the body and even the brain. And I kept coming across mentions of social robots, and I thought, that's a really intriguing subject. So I'll have to delve into that more when I finish this book. So when I finished that book, I immediately dove in and was just amazed to learn what's going on in labs and universities and in private companies across the world in the creation of social robots, and some of the amazing things that they do. So there's actually a significant body of research on them already, and that formed the basis of the new book.
What is a social robot?
So a social robot is a socially interactive robot, which means that it speaks, it processes language, it will converse with you in a back and forth way that's with appropriate replies to what you tell them. It combines that with facial expressions and movement. And when you put all those things together, it creates a very compelling illusion of life. Even though there is no life there, people, when they interact with these robots, literally have a hard time keeping a clear line in their mind between, is this a living being or is it just a machine? So they're very compelling and seductive.
I liked how there was earlier, I was able to, researching you coming on, you had an interview on NPR. And you were talking about this a lot, and I heard reference to it as well about people falling in love with these avatar, whatever you would want to call it, avatar or however it be. Can you tell us more about that and this whole I don't know what it is, what you would call it, but this whole worrisome thing where people actually begin to tell us about that process and how that works and that experience.
So these people call themselves technosexuals. And so, it includes men who are in love or believe that they're in love with things that are technological products. Like there's a man in Japan that I wrote about in my book who married a hologram of an anime character. And it was like a glass dome, and they're for sale. You can buy them. And it has a little hologram of this little female character inside of it. And there's literally thousands of men. It's hard to believe, but there are like around 3,000 men who have married these holograms. So I write about that a lot because I think that it shows kind of how a person can be sucked into a would-be relationship that seems like it's a real relationship because the character is talking to you. But in reality, there is no relationship. The person is having a relationship with themselves because it's a feedback loop. They're in a feedback loop with themselves. But it's, like I said, these things can be very much more compelling than you would think.
Yeah, it's disturbing but fascinating, and I I would love to know, more about how social robots trick us into thinking they're conscious. So what's going on? How are they this good?
They're this good because they have AI, and they, have these very sophisticated algorithms that come into play in terms of learning everything about you, remembering everything you tell them, engaging in some very convincing conversations that suggest that there's a mental life going on. And then they're also doing things like reading your emotions and including your facial expressions and your body language, and then responding in what their programmers hope is an appropriate way. And over time, the more you interact with these robots, the more history you have with them, the more they know about you, the more they can cater to your whims and your desires and your interests. And it all kind of has a snowballing effect over time. And that relationship can become very precious. So, it is very compelling. I mean, it sounds kind of silly on the surface of it, but there's been a lot of research done on these types of interactions. And people of all ages tend to develop a level of confusion about whether they're in a real relationship or not.
Yeah, I'm thinking of like social media, all the data points that are gathered by our browsing history, by, they it essentially Facebook knows me better than, I don't want to say my wife, but of course, right? And same sort of thing going on, right?
It is, and the problem in my mind is that what happens over time in relationship with these robots is that they can attend to you and cater to your whims in a very consistent, almost flawless way, on a level that no human being could possibly keep up with, because human beings have lives, but the robot has no life. You're the robot's life. And it can become really, attachments can form, deep attachments can form.
And to let everyone know, as you shared, you are a techno optimist. So there are some amazing, great things of this, not that it's all bad. So tell us a little bit about the benefits of this opportunity with robots, the social aspects and the benefit that we could see with society.
Well, I think one of the biggest benefits could be for people who are disabled or elderly and have physical limitations and even dementia. There are robots that are designed to be care bots, and they can do things like engage with you socially so that you're not lonely, stimulate your mind, play cognitive games with you to keep your mind sharp. They can lift you out of bed and put you in a wheelchair back again. They can manage your medications. They can call emergency services or a caregiver if needed. They have this whole range of things that they can do for people. And it's interesting because people find it easier to be cared for by a robot in a lot of cases than it is to be cared for by a human. And the reason is because privacy is an issue, and dignity is an issue. And sometimes when we're cared for by humans and they do intimate things for us, that's not a really comfortable situation. Whereas if it's a machine, you don't really have to worry about that sort of thing. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I can. I'm
I
sorry.
mean, I'm sorry. It's the other thing that I wanted to mention is in the case of dementia, people who have Alzheimer's, for example, enter a stage where you cannot take your eyes off of them. They wander, you don't know what they're going to do next, and you cannot take your eyes off of them. And at the same time, they're very anxious and afraid and need social interaction, reassurance. A robot can do that. A robot can watch a frail elderly person with dementia 24/7. They can alert you if they're trying to leave the house, or if they've turned the stove on and a fire is about to start. And that patient can talk to them endlessly. So they will ask the same questions over and over and over again because they forget the answer the minute you tell them. Well, a robot is not going to lose patience. So there's all kinds of uses for them. I think legitimate uses, and also easing loneliness for older people and for just people who are socially isolated.
Yeah, how far away are we? I know in the US, I don't think there's yet, with regulatory situations, we're not using them, maybe in laboratories, but I imagine in other countries, maybe Japan, they're already utilizing them. Where are we in this, utilizing them for elderly?
Well, just as you would suspect, Japan is on the leading edge of it because they're using robots for a lot of things. But you would be surprised, Michael, how much they actually are being used already in the United States. So they're being used in nursing homes. They're being used as almost, there are some animal-like robots that are being used as kind of like, comfort animals for older people, especially older people with dementia. They are being used in hospitals to help deliver supplies and medications. And they're also being used in teaching. So some schools have actually started using them to teach STEM classes. And they're creeping in. They're coming, they're coming down the pike. At the moment, price is a bit of an obstacle. The social robots for the home that is most well known, his name is Pepper, runs about $8,000. So, that's a lot of money when you think about it. But on the other hand, if you're a parent with a child with autism that needs special therapy and a special autism program to teach their child on a daily basis how to socially interact, that could pay for itself pretty quickly.
Yeah, you bring up cost as if $8,000 in the grand scheme of things is nothing. We're talking about the GP1 drugs that are like $1,000 a month, these new weight loss drugs. Well, geez, you're talking about an $8,000 thing that's going to change the situation social for life. So over a lifetime, that's pretty impressive,
It is. And, we can only presume that as the economies of scale kick in, that these prices will come down as the technology continues to advance. So I do think there will be a day, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not in 5 years, but maybe 10 or 12 years from now, when these will be fairly common in the home, in the household.
Yeah, I would definitely think so with the challenge. I mean, I have to personally say, my mom's 85, my dad's 91. We do have almost a full-time caregiver for my dad, 6 hours a day. He has dementia. And so you really hit home with the privacy. I think it is a real big thing for him, helping him go to the restroom. I've had to be involved in that as a son, and absolutely for him, that would be probably the best thing if he was able to just utilize it. So I think it's really also reimagining what the scope of a assistive device / robot, personal, whatever companion. I think, can you tell us a little more about sort of just reimagining what a robot is and how better defining that too?
A robot can be so many different things depending on what we design it to do. But I see them as filling certain roles in our lives as friends, as caregivers, as teachers, therapists, and in some cases, lovers. I think they will fill some of those social niches for us that we've always thought could only be filled by human beings. But combined with that, they'll also be able to do all kinds of practical things for us, like cleaning the home, doing laundry, loading a dishwasher, cooking, keep it in perspective.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I, you know, we're seeing that they're, you know, people of all ages tends to believe that robots are smarter than them, um, and that they're accordingly. So I know you were saying a little bit that they're AI and they're sort of like. So can you tell us a little bit like that phenomenon of robots just appearing smarter and that kind of I don't know if that's just the bias we have. Like, how is that working?
Yeah, and that's actually one of the things that concerns me a lot, at least in the early years of having these robots in our lives, is that, and this is backed up by research, people tend to always assume that a robot is smarter than them, no matter what, no matter you can put them in testing situations where you have a group of humans with one robot sitting there, and then they're asked a question, and then they can go around the room and people will give their answer, which is usually correct because it's an easy question, but the robot will give a wrong answer. And then the people around the room, about 80% of them will change their correct reply to conform with what the robot said. And I think that the reason this is happening is because there are different types of intelligence that humans have. There are only two types of intelligence really that robots have, but those types of intelligence are very highly valued by our society. And the one that's valued the most is computational ability. And because robots are whizzes at computation, they have mathematical, logical, capacity that exceeds our own, and it's impressive, and it kind of psychs us up a little bit. That we think, well, computational intelligence and combined with a certain amount of linguistic intelligence, we tend to think that's general intelligence, but it's not general intelligence. General intelligence on a human level involves many other different kinds of intelligence, whether it's emotional, moral, spiritual, kinetic, creative, musical. There's all the different abilities that humans have that robots so far don't have, and we kind of lose our perspective on this, I think.
So how did you get interested in this before writing your prior book?
Well, like I said, I just kept, in my research, I kept running across, and this was in a medical context, the social robots. And it really does, in my mind, I think there is a really big role for robots to play in healthcare, and especially in home healthcare. And let's face it, if you were disabled, where would you rather be, in a nursing home or in your own home?
Mhm.
And having your own privacy and dignity, and be cared for by a robot. And that doesn't mean that you don't have, meaningful connection with your human caregivers. It means that your human caregivers are spending less time bathing you and getting you to the toilet and back, and more time engaging with you in a meaningful way.
And
So I
less
think
burned
it's,
out.
yeah, and there's a shortage of caregivers, and that's one of the reasons why in Japan, there's such a big use of these robots, because they have the same kind of demographic changes that we're going through, with an aging population and a falling birth rate, and
Yeah.
we're right behind them.
And China I'm seeing that their population is falling. They're doing now a lot with the government to encourage population growth. Are you seeing utilization of robots in China at this point? Are they open to it?
There's a lot of research being done in China. I don't know how much is being done because China is a little bit of a black box to us in terms
Mhm.
of, getting information about what's going on in society there. So I wasn't able to really find out much, but other than the fact that there is a lot going on at the university level in
Mhm.
researching with social robots. So one thing follows another. I think they will be using them if they're not already.
What would you like to happen?
Well, I'd like to have my own personal robot for starters. I have a whole list of things that I would love for them to do for me. And I'd like for robots to be available to the average person, but with the understanding that, these are machines, they're not people. They cannot and shouldn't replace real people or even animals in our life. Um, and that we use them in a healthy way, that they're made for, that can really benefit us and help us to flourish as human beings. I don't
When
think,
do
yeah, no, go
Sorry.
ahead.
When do you see yourself having your own robot? I mean, when do you see yourself being able to have your own?
I could see it happening within the next 10 years. I think, and I'm a person who has some physical limitations. So I could really, when I think through, sometimes we think through doomsday scenarios about the future as we get older and things like that. I could see myself having a robot to help me with a lot of things in life as I get older. And I think that will probably happen in maybe 10 years.
I mean, I can see, like, as a kid, I loved Star Wars with Luke Skywalker, and I mean, we can say the two robots in the movie, right? And droids or whatever you call it, but R2D2, right? And Obi-Wan
Hmm.
Kenobi. I mean, but like the R2D2 could, you could add a few little features and he could be your personal assistant. I mean, he was there wheeling right behind Luke Skywalker whenever he needed him.
And their abilities are just getting, bigger and greater and more interesting by the day, because of all the research that's going on and because the technology that underpins what these robots can do is just advancing, at an enormously fast rate. They're starting to put generative AI into robots now. And this is a new thing. It wasn't going on when I first started writing my book. It's a recent
Mhm.
development. So a lot of the things that I wrote about in my book have been superseded already. So it's just a really fast moving, dynamic field. And there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of investment. The conditions are ripe,
Mhm.
demographics are right. There's just so many things supporting the development of these robots and getting us to the point where they're actually widespread.
So you're really, in some way, a futurist.
I am a futurist. I enjoy trying to anticipate what might happen in the future. I mean, to me, the ultimate dream would be to be catapulted 100 years into the future and be a fly on the wall and
Yeah.
just see what things are like and how people live. To me, that's a fascinating thing.
Well, I love the cover that you have, and I wish I could just pull it up real fast. But that for those, once I post this, I'll put, more of the in the newsletter. People will be able to see the robotic. If you looked, and you'll see her book. It has a really nice kind of droid robot with the finger of a monarch butterfly. I imagine it's a monarch. I'm not an expert. If and I love the vision it creates, that interplay between a monarch. Is there something symbolic to that? I mean, I think the monarch is such an amazing, powerful butterfly that makes that journey, that migration, and just the nature and the wonder. And then right on the tip of the finger, tip of the robot. I don't know, however that was a great cover.
Well, thank you. That was the people at my publishing house, St. Martin's Press, who came up with that. And I thought they really nailed kind of the feeling and the overall message of the book, which is overwhelmingly positive, I think, in the end, but also a little bit jarring and a little bit concerning, when you think of there's potential problems with this, there are adjustments that we need to make, to adequately cope with this and use it in the best possible way. And I thought they really captured that.
Yeah. Are there any companies that you are excited about that are on top of this robotic, moving the needle, that are doing research? The only ones that I can see is like Boston Science. I think, do you follow that as well?
I do, Boston Dynamics is what you're thinking of, I think, and
Mhm.
they're always interesting because they have a lot of funding from the US government, and they've done some amazing robots. And they are the one, I think they may have been the first one to incorporate generative AI. They incorporated Chat GPT in one of their robots, and they're fascinating. But there's another robotics company called Hanson Robotics, and they do ultra realistic androids. These are androids that have movable faces that can have just really incredibly, vivid, expressions, and carry on sophisticated conversations. And in fact, one of their robots, her name is Sophia, was granted citizenship by the country of Saudi Arabia in 2017. So I follow them. They have a new robot too, and I can't remember her name at the moment, but she's like a sister of Sophia, and she's specifically for caregiving. She's
Mm.
like a nurse, and she does a lot of amazing things. And so I follow them and some of the other companies, but there are big companies involved in this. Toyota's involved in it. Tesla's involved in it. There's big companies, small companies, everything in between, but it's just an exciting field.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I have seen Sophia. They really did a great buzz across that, to all the, basically a wide audience, casting that, with her come out of as a citizen. I mean, I remember that, so, what would you like to happen?
What I would like to happen is for people to become educated about this subject before they actually get a robot. And we need to be robot literate, because then we're going to avoid some of the pitfalls of being so dazzled by them, that we serve our robots as opposed to vice versa, or we allow them to displace other relationships in our lives, and we're not really flourishing as human beings, because what's been found with social media, and I think it carries over into robots as well, is that people who engage in too much social media actually isolates people in the long run. And robots do that too. So if you put too much emphasis on a robot relationship, what happens is your human social skills start to atrophy, and you actually lose social skills, and then you become more isolated. So these are things that people need to talk about and be educated about today, before they bring that first all-purpose social robot into the home. Even if we taught it in schools, I mean, why not? We should teach it in schools. I mean, children will need to know. They'll need to know how to work with robots. They'll have to deal with them in a retail environment, in a medical environment. We need to teach robot literacy.
Yeah, no, I love what you're doing. I love what you've said about just you have such a great approach, very much as if you're a scientist, anthropologist. You're not just selling like you're not like you don't own all the robot stock. You obviously have a holistic approach. You're very circumspect, and I think it's very much needed. There's too much, you know, anti that or pro that. You're very much have a great approach. And I would say, though you're a futurist and you're very much obviously passionate and excited by robots, but you're offering us a very healthy perspective as an audience to how we need to, as society, really hurry up and get on board, because they're going to be here. And it is worrisome with social media. You use a great analogy, and social media, it's like the discipline we have to have. The same discipline we have with social media, we're going to need the constraints with our robots. And so, are you involved in any committees, associations, grassroots to kind of collectively put this together? Because I thought, sadly enough, with OpenAI, there was a hope with trying to safeguard the destructive forces of, though that kind of turned on its head. It ended up becoming bought out by Microsoft, or, are you involved in sort of groups to try to safeguard, because not one Eve can do this. Are you involved in any of these sort of organizations to help kind of coalesce that, if you will?
Well, I'm very fortunate in that the HealthSpan Action Coalition is really starting to take these things on, including some of the policy issues with AI and robots, because of the explosion of robots and AI being used in the medical sphere and in research. And as you probably know, there's very little regulation in the field. And, it's all evolving. We're kind of driving on the road that we're building at the same time. So it's very early stages, but I'm very lucky to have the support of an organization that is very much interested in these things and takes this very seriously, and is on board with helping to formulate some really effective policy to kind of guide us and to educate the public about it as well.
How can average people get involved?
I think they can get involved by reading as much as they can about this at this stage of things. And also, I'm a big believer in write to your representative in government. If you feel, that as a lot of people do, that we are really lagging behind in the policy side of things. And there's a tremendous need for regulation and supportive, but wise and instructive policy. Write to your representative, but educate yourself at every opportunity about this, because again, you don't want to be bushwhacked. I mean, it is, as you said, it's coming, and you want to understand it and respond to it in a healthy way.
And I like how you bring back, when we were talking earlier about how you got fascinated by the user case, the application for dementia healthcare, where we have a shortness of healthcare workforce. I would imagine, can you maybe walk through what I would imagine eventually, maybe this is issued as a durable medical device, as assistive technology, if it's able to be in certain, it's not a whatever the status is, but, or would it be a medical device? I don't know. Would it have to have FDA approval if it would do X, Y, Z? And I'm just thinking about the user case, how you put that scenario in, and let's just think of it on a simple level to and it's not, forgive me for oversimplifying it, but, if someone's, discharged from a hospital, they get, certain orders written by their doctor, whether it be a rollator or a walker or a hospital bed. I would imagine, why not? In 7 years, they get their assistive whatever.
Those are great questions and a great point, Michael. What we need to have eventually is FDA approval and coverage by Medicare and Medicaid for caregiving robots, because, let's face it, they cover human caregivers up to a point now, and inadequately, I will say, not to the extent that they need to. But they do reimburse for certain amounts of, home care, having a nurse come to your home, a visiting nurse. There's every reason to make this insurable, coverable, and reimbursable because it enhances people's health. And ultimately, it's going to make sure that, they take their medicine, that they have therapy, that they have rehabilitation, and things that are going to, in the long run, save the whole system money. So I hope we can take the long view on this and not just the short-term view of saying, well, they cost X number of dollars, so we're not going to cover that. I hope we can see beyond that and see in the long term how they really can enhance health and extend the health span of people.
Well, I'd love after this, if there's any sort of research that I can provide the audience in Japan, a user case, an organization that's, utilizing a robot that's pretty much doing those sort of tasks right now. I mean, if that's the case in Japan, why not here? At least a small little trial, a little test market of X amount of patients that agree to being, part of that. Is there anything right now through the AARP or any other health plans trying that, or universities or health systems that you know of?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't think so. I think it's all still too new. But again, it's just there's such a compelling case to be made for, reimbursing this, that I do think that eventually over time it will happen. But again, policy and practices are lagging behind the technological capability. And and that's an issue. That's a problem for people who need help today. But again, we've been surprised before with advancing technology who would have thought that you could get an artificial heart and get reimbursed for that, and that's actually happening now. So it'll happen eventually because of necessity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it will for sure. It's just a matter of when, and there's all those different stakeholders that are worried about them, whether it be the national, anyway, that those who provide care with caregivers and organizations, et cetera, or, but the endless, you've made it clear, it is clear that the demographics is every day we have 10,000 older adult seniors turning 65. Our population just cannot support that. And I don't want to just get so focused on this. I want to make sure we give the best to the topic that's deserved to you, Eve. Let's turn back to just the fullness of robots and the relationship. Would you tell me what is it that is the best case scenario if we get this right?
I think the best case scenario is that there will be far less loneliness in the world. There will be enriched lives that are greatly enriched because you can program a robot, to be exquisitely compatible to your interests. Like if you're interested in medieval medicine, kind of like I am, it's one of my nerdy interests. I would like a robot to discuss that with me. If you're interested in aviation, a robot could discuss that so they can educate us and they can inform us in ways that, it's very easy. It's easy to do because it's done through natural language. So we're not sitting in a library thumbing through books. We've got this brilliant conversationalist, who can discuss all these things with us. So I think that eventually our lives will be enriched by them. My hope is that we will keep it in perspective, though, and not become more isolated, not more alienated from each other. And maybe the more we interact with robots, we'll realize all the great things about human beings will stand out in bold relief, and it'll give us a perspective over time.
Eve, it's been awesome having you on today.
I've really enjoyed it. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm really glad you said yes. And I mean, with our title, we are definitely, planetary health first, Mars next. There's no reason why we can't talk about robots today and robots in the future, and especially about all the healthcare implications. So I feel like we were a perfect fit for each other.
Absolutely. And thanks so much for your understanding of the topic. I really appreciate the kind of questions you asked. Is really, because like you said, it's a very multidimensional subject. And to do it justice, you have to look at it from all those angles.
Well, I highly encourage everyone. Eve has been working on this. And what I'm excited is you get to research this. You're supported at your work, HealthSpan, to, this kind of work. And this title is a little long. I'll read it again, but it's Robots and the People Who Love Them Holding On to Our Humanity in an Age of Social Robots by Eve Herold. And I will, once this is up, I will put some more links. I'll allow you to find her book on it. She has multiple ways that you can purchase the book. And anyway, this has been an amazing day with Eve here on Planetary Health. Until next time, friends, make it a great day. Peace be with you on Planetary Health.